Okay, so let me share my screen. And here talking about exploring Workspace's experience, again, not necessarily from an engineering standpoint, but more just how Workspace might be presented to the end users. We talked about Workspace as a top-level object. Now we're going to talk about Workspace as screens. So very similar concept to Workspace as a top-level object, but really rather than taking that object, forcing users to navigate to that object, and then from there, the navigation is to the features that they need, distributing those out really, and just building the screens that people need in other parts of the navigation. So taking a look like what that might look like in a flow map. And I guess it's important to as I go through this, some of these, I might be pointing up like this is coming up from the main menu. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be in that drop down. I'm more just taking this box up here as like some sort of global type navigation. Haven't necessarily figured out where that's going to be. But so rather than going to workspaces and then from workspaces going to a particular feature, having those features live somewhere else in the navigation and allowing you to get right to them. So billing might be an example of that, right? So somewhere in the drop down, or maybe part of your personal thing or left sidebar, wherever it may be, being able to access billing directly from there, not necessarily having to go workspace, billing, and then see billing. Groups could basically stay as the organizational method. Everything would roll up to a top level group. Allow settings to be defined and applied to all groups. Basically, kind of went through all this already. Access to navigation through elements, and also I think in context, right? There might be some places where not necessarily just global navigation, but like in context, we could link you directly to these screens, which is kind of one of the benefits of this over if it's kind of nested in Workspace. Sometimes it's harder to navigate to things that are nested, right? It's more of a direct navigation might open up more in context kind of navigation. So evaluating against the problem statements, again, engineering wise depends on how it's built. It does solve the access instance level features and gives more control over permissions. It does solve some of the feature parity problems. It improves but does not solve feature level availability. Hierarchy does not really address at all. Solves the overview part of the navigation. And just quickly, in case you're just watching this video, when I say problem statements, we've been working on another set of problem statements, trying to basically consolidate a just collection of problem statements that we had and pare them down to. So when I'm comparing them against, let's say, navigation, this one at the end was basically saying it solved this one, but not these other three problems there. Some drawbacks to it. Views not anchored to a context might be confusing. It would be a little bit different of a paradigm if you're used to, say, going to groups to do billing, and then you're expecting the billing to be in that context of that group. If we move billing out there and now you're in this other context and you have to get into the context of a group, it's just kind of a context shift that might be interesting, and it would require additional navigation. I'm realizing now as I'm going through this, I switched the group of Workspace as top level groups. This one is very much based on Workspace as top level groups, which would be the next video. Oh, actually, no, that's incorrect. Never mind. It is based on Workspace as a top level object. So disregard that. So any questions? Anything about that wasn't clear?
My first question, and this may be on me more so than the explanation, is that Workspace will contain, so the billing being the example used already, Workspace will contain billing, or it will just be access to billing,
Um,
as an example.
yeah, so I guess it would technically contain it, right? So if you look at this as the same thing as it being a top level object, it's really just taking it, making it a top level object that contains these things and distributing it rather than consolidating it into a screen. So yeah, in that one, it would contain billing. Probably.
Okay.
I mean, billing might not be the best example because right now it does, there is a disparity between self-managed, it lives at the admin level, and .com, it lives at the group level. So there is a disparity. I'm not necessarily saying that it would have to move to this thing. Billing is just an example of something that does currently live at the admin level now.
And that brings something up about sort of one of our goals, or what, or maybe problem statements to solve, is creating parity between self-managed and SaaS with the work here. Does this solution get us to that parity? I'm sorry if we covered that in the problem statements, but where are we working towards that, or is that further down the line, like as we go?
Yeah, no, it would. So that's kind of what I meant here. And apologies, I'm paraphrasing these. So when I say access to instance level features, access to instance level features is limited to admins only. When I go through the problem statements, that's what I mean by that. Just shortening it so it wasn't such a long thing to read. But yes, but not necessarily saying that we're solving it as being prescriptive, making a container that would allow you to solve it, basically.
Okay. There are a few drawbacks with this one, and they seem, at least versus what we've already been over, maybe a little bit more, even though there's few of them, critical drawbacks to this solution. Does that, how viable does that make this solution versus other solutions? Are we already starting to make that drawdown of your favorite solution as the product designer?
Yeah, this is definitely not my favorite. It's near the bottom, I would say. I think there's parts of this that we can utilize in the overall solution, but this as a solution, I do not think is going to function very well. So when we get to the last one, Workspaces has improved groups and create an admin view. There is like an everything solution. I think there are parts and pieces of each one of these that we can combine together in the final solution. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily look at them as
Mutually
either ors.
exclusive. Yeah,
There are like aspects of them I think we might be able to use in a final solution.
great. Perfect. Thanks. That's it.
Cool. We'll go on to the next one then. Stop sharing and stop the video.